Hello friends, my name is Joseph C. Slack. Here's who I am and what I do. I'm giving myself about 2 hours to write, record, and edit just a mini video essay about Hamilton. Let me be upfront. I really love Hamilton. I played a couple of live karaoke gigs, which involved me learning the music at the piano, which is why, by the way, I have all of this music out on my keyboard. It was wonderful. It was some of the more fun musical experiences I'd ever had, even still. Something that really stuck out to me, and still does about the musical, is how interwoven the whole thing is. Musical ideas are introduced and they come up again and again throughout the work. I remember my favorite track on the whole album was Non-Stop, and I just was so impressed how many different songs and musical ideas he quoted, and how many I recognized as well. This all led me to a couple weeks ago, after I watched it on the release of Disney+, to analyze the work in terms of what's going on in terms of leitmotifs. This term was originally used to describe the works of a German composer by the name of Richard Wagner.
Quick disclaimer, Wagner was a racist with deplorable beliefs.
His operas were these long, sprawling things, and to kind of keep the whole thing cohesive, Wagner would have melodies closely associated with various characters, ideas that were happening on stage. Almost like mini theme songs. This technique ended up being used a lot in film music, and it's really effective. So when you hear this, you think of the Shire from Lord of the Rings. Or when you hear this, you think of Darth Vader from Star Wars. So what does this have to do with Hamilton? Everything. Lin-Manuel Miranda builds Hamilton from the ground up as this web of interrelated musical ideas, and they reappear, they combine, and even morph a little bit. I sat down to figure out all of them. Here's what I found out. Number 1! I like spreadsheets more than I care to admit. Number 2. Nearly every song has some connection to other music in the musical. Even in a seemingly standalone number like Burn, it's quoted later on. Put myself back in the narrative, that gets quoted. Number 3! The only song that has no real connection to other music was Farmer Refuted. This ties into Lin-Manuel Miranda's characterization of the British as kind of separate from the rest of the musical. You'll Be Back doesn't quote anything from the rest of the musical. It does reprise, though, so it has something, it does get brought up again, but there's this very distinct sense that they are separate, doing their own thing. And this is a good example of Lin-Manuel Miranda using the lack of musical interconnectedness to characterize, to say something. So, let's go through a few of the just top motifs, the ones that appear in the most songs.
Name is Alexander Hamilton.
How does a bastard orphan?
Pardon me, are you Aaron Burr, sir? I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm...
I mentioned Non-Stop before, and turns out I was totally right to be impressed. It, by a wide margin, it quotes the most interconnected musical material of the entire musical at a whopping 16 different musical motifs. The next one on the list isn't even close. It's at 11, and it's The World Was Wide Enough, which feels like it's cheating because it's 2 songs and a monologue and a trench coat. Number 6! One thing that you can do with leitmotifs is that you can draw little parallels by the musical similarities between 2 different musical ideas. And because those 2 different musical ideas represent ideas or characters, then you draw parallels in the actual story. So take, for example, the Aaron Burr Sir, the way that that song starts, and the motif that comes up for him. 1776. New York City. So, take that. The same thing basically happens in Wait For It. But we've got this whole baseline fleshing things out. And this invites a little bit of interpretation. What's going on here? Is this Aaron Burr's inner life versus his outer life? In Wait For It, are we seeing more of the picture as opposed to an Aaron Burr Sir, where he's only showing kind of this external facade, this like outer image that he's willing to show to the rest of the world? Lastly, it just makes the whole work cohesive. Hamilton's a really long musical. It's what, like 45 tracks or something? And this makes it all feel a little bit more cohesive. Makes it feel like a whole. It's also really satisfying as a listener. You hear these melodic figures and ideas, and you've heard them before, and you recognize them, and it grabs your attention, and sometimes it even kind of makes you feel smart for, like, catching all of these things. It's just a really satisfying experience.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So yeah, that's it. I don't have some grand point to make with all this. I just went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this piece of wonderful music theater, and I wanted to share a little bit with you. I hope you enjoyed just a little bit of my rambling, and I hope you'll indulge me again soon.